Welcome to part four of our special four-part podcast series, How You Can Buy a Business for a More Fulfilling Career whilst Building a Seven-Figure Asset and Securing Your Legacy for yourself and your family. So because myself, Phil and Jan Mark are so grateful to those who illuminated the buying businesses opportunity for us, we have dedicated these past four episodes to really putting our hands back to help you see if this could be something for you. In this final episode of the series, we answer your FAQs, your frequently asked questions. Questions such as, so where does my income come from if I do this? What are the risks? Do I have the skills right now to get started? How do I get started? We've only really scratched the surface so far in these four episodes. So if you want to learn more, then make sure you do sign up for our free newsletter. Just head to uk-bcp.com and enter your details. Or you may be feeling super inspired and want to kind of fast track this process. Or you may have already started, but you've hit some hurdles. Then get in touch with us about our mentoring offer, where we basically want to partner with you on a deal. There are no upfront costs to this. It's a genuine business partnership opportunity where we both would have skin in the game. How much skin can be up to you. We just need to have a conversation about what a partnership would look like. So do get in touch either through the UK-BCP website or via LinkedIn. We are going to be back in October with a brand new four-part series. We're thinking this will be about how we onboard and create effective change and run that legacy business once we've acquired it to maximize profits, team productivity, engagement, leverage your time, all that good stuff. So we can step back and take on more businesses and build our portfolio. And we'll also begin with an update as to where we're up to in our own acquisition journey and how we've been pivoting slightly with, the world as it is, looming recessions, pandemics, things like that. So that will be coming in October. For now, please enjoy the final part of this four-part series, and I will speak to you soon. Okay, so the last section of this fantastic podcast, I thought it'd be good to answer some FAQs, some kind of questions that, will be on people's minds. But Phil, if we start with you, how does it work if someone wants to buy a business, like leaving their full-time job to do so? Like, how do they get paid? How does the money side of things work? Like when you're kind of buying this business, and how much do they get paid?
Okay, well, the first thing is, as we've already said, they don't actually need to leave their full-time job, at least not straight away. So that's optional.
Yeah.
The golden rule is still the more you put in, the more you get out, and the faster you get it out. If you think of a business is like a little black box that generates money, generates cash. And when you're buying a business, what you're doing is buying that black box that is a cash machine. And as a business owner, you get paid out of the cash that comes out of the black box. So the more cash that comes out, the more you can take, because obviously bear in mind that everybody else also gets paid out of the same stream of cash. So your suppliers get paid out of that, your staff get paid out of that, your lenders get paid out of that, and they all eat before you do. There are arguments about that, but essentially feeding them is not optional, feeding you is optional. So the more cash the business generates, the more you can take out of it. So whether you can get enough cash straight away to fully fund your lifestyle depends. How big is the business? How big are its margins? How much have you had to borrow to buy the business? Because the better the business, the more it will cost. So it's not it's not a simple question to answer, apart from saying that you get paid out of the stream of money that comes out of the business, because otherwise you're chopping away at the box itself. And if you chop away at the box, ultimately it stops working. So it's not a good idea to it's not a good idea to do that.
And I suppose just reflecting on our own how, our own acquisition process, you have your super duper master spreadsheet, which allows you to kind of plan in advance, like before you even sign any sort of paperwork with the business saying you're going to buy it, you can actually do those calculations beforehand. I mean, things might change, but hopefully not too much, to figure out, I suppose, what that chunk is that is left for you. You have all those numbers to figure that out.
Yeah, you need to know going in that the business generates enough that it can pay all of its overheads, all of its bills, and whatever extra bills you're creating for it, and then leave some fee.
And you can make that a criteria when you're looking at businesses, which one's the right one for you. You can say, well, it needs to pay me X amount, and you'll have, you can use that planning exercise.
And I mean, arguably, the way I was taught is that's the most important thing. And it's this thing about don't fall in love with the thing you want to buy. Because actually the most important thing is that it stacks up whatever the business does, because the reality is the business will be interesting, whatever it does, whatever it makes, even if what it makes doesn't seem to be very interesting. If it's making you a living and making a profit and increasing in value, then it is bloody interesting.
Amen. Okay. So next question then. So Yanni, this one's coming your way. I suppose we've pretty much answered this question, but let's just not leave anything unsaid. Can someone build a portfolio of businesses on the side of their job?
Yeah, I mean we expanded a little bit on that. I think we need to define what portfolio basically means. So it's like, I think you can do a lot on the side of your job. I mean, it all comes down to the question on how many hours are you working. And if you work 40 hours, that leaves another 120, if I'm correct, to in the rest of the week. So I mean, the point is that basically you have to make a decision. I think it comes down to the decision. If you say, I want to do this and I want to do it next to my job because I have family obligations, or I just feel more secure doing it that way, then you certainly can. You just have to then decide what your priorities are. You cannot have everything at the same time. You can't be like the weekend partying and then like think, okay, there's like 2 hours a week is enough, because realistically it's not. And the more time obviously you put in, the faster it will go. But I mean, a lot of companies these days, they are also allowing job sharing, for example, that you share your full-time job with somebody else. So you might be getting there and say, okay, I'm like what Phil described is like, okay, I have the first acquisition, it's through, and you can maybe negotiate with your current employer that you are reducing to 80% or maybe even 60%, but that gives you like 2 days a week. If you work every day, then maybe you can start earlier at your like job and then work until short after lunch, and then, or vice versa, depending on what industry you work in. So I mean, there are a lot of things you can be doing. You can like do a lot of stuff on the weekend if you have the discipline. One thing I would caution against is, I think you have to pay attention to your health at that point. You can run on 4 hours sleep. Is it healthy to do it over like a period of months? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Everything that I've read indicate that it's not. And I've done it occasionally, even on less, but you feel it. So I think you have to find, at one point, you have to find that balance, and you have to define that balance. Does it have to be when you say, okay, I'm excited about like acquiring my business or the businesses next to my job? No, then just like you just go with it, but like plan enough downtime, if you want to call that downtime, or recreational recovery time for yourself, just to stay like sane and healthy along that way, and then you can perfectly build something next to your job. I think there's no issue with that, and at one point you can just make the switch.
Yeah, and I think I would say as well, again, just reflecting on our own situation, I think for me, like having the two of you like in it, like we're all in it together, I think really helps, especially at the beginning. And like for me, for instance, like I'm going to go on maternity leave soon. Obviously, if it was just me.
What?
that comes as a surprise.
I'm very pregnant, for those who can't away my neck. Yeah, obviously if it was just me, then I would feel a lot more stressed and a lot more pressure like about that decision to go on maternity leave. Whereas I think if you have a couple of people who are in it with you, or even one other person that's in it with you, then it makes the transition, I think, easier. Like, well, for all the reasons you just said, Yanni, but also even just when you're a couple of years down the line and life happens, you know, to know that it's not all on you, I think is just so for me, it's a bit of a lifesaver.
Just for the benefit of the audience, when Bethan says maternity leave, what she means is she's taking a week off.
That's not.
I remember that a little bit differently, but
well, I know you'll miss me. So next question, I'll try and answer this. So what advice would you give to someone who's interested in buying a business as a possible career switch, but it all feels a bit risky? So I suppose here it's picking up on this word risk and what your perception of risk is. I mean, obviously, you know, buying a business, there is an element of risk. You're taking on loans, raising money that's not yours, whether it is from a bank or from private investors. So in that respect, you know, you can't just fuck it up. that you have to do your best to try and make it a success. But I suppose, yeah, at the same time, I think it comes down to this whole everything we spoke about, really, in terms of this question you ask yourself of, are you fulfilled right now, and what's the risk to continuing a life where you don't feel you're living your potential, versus like stepping out into a bit of the unknown. I say arguably there's more certainty than a startup, but for all the reasons you've said, I think fundamentally we all have to decide what our risk tolerance is. You know, like, you know, you may have family, you may have a mortgage. It's funny because I always get asked the question, because I began my entrepreneurial journey relatively young, like, oh, you know, didn't you think you needed to build up some experience? And I always say, well, actually, I think the best time to do it is when I was young, because I didn't have massive mortgage and I didn't have kids, and my risk tolerance was quite low. But obviously everyone's different, and like, you know, Phil started this in his 50s without revealing how old you are. So we were obviously at two different ends of the spectrum. And he did have, you know, well, by then his kids have grown up. But I think it's just a personal decision and reflection, and you have to weigh up things like priorities. how you feel just getting out of bed every day, and what's the worst case scenario, best case scenario, most likely case scenario is always a good question to ask. And that's all you can really do, and just do your best, I suppose. That's all we can all do.
And as you're listening to this, you'll be thinking one of two things, which is essentially either be, well, this sort of stuff might be for me, or it won't. Some people will never get it. Some people will never achieve their potential, and it's a horrendous waste. And we've actually got an example of that going on right now in one of our businesses, where someone's just handed their notice in to leave for a job, for a dead end job that's going to pay them £2 an hour more. And the reason why they're doing it is because their wife's pregnant, and their perception is that taking a dead end job for £2 an hour more is the right thing to do, and is less risky than staying with us in a job that's paying them a bit less now, but could pay them a lot more in the future. And even now they could be earning more by doing overtime, but overtime is not guaranteed. And their perception of that is that it's a risk to stay. Whereas actually my perception of that is it's a risk to go. Because you're going into a siding. And yeah, I mean, but that's what I mean, is that not everybody gets it, and different people have different perception of what risk is.
Absolutely. Okay, next question, Philip. How long does the acquisition process take?
Yeah, interesting question. It depends. The answer is, the short answer is I'd say between 3 and 9 months, depending on circumstances. 3 is quick. 9 is slow, and if it starts taking too long, then something will go wrong anyway, and it'll all fall down. But it's a period of months. It's not years, and it's not weeks. There's a lot of steps to go through in that period, and everybody needs to go on a journey, and some people get there quicker than others. But it's that sort of time frame that we're talking about. I mean, I think the first acquisition took about 9 months actually, but that had COVID appearing in the middle of it, which obviously slowed it down. It wouldn't have taken that long but for COVID. Second acquisition was probably not far off, similar, same start to finish. And the most recent one was quicker, probably 6 months, maybe even a bit less actually. I think you can shorten it as you go, because you get to know the process, and it makes things easier. But yeah, it's that sort of time frame.
And for anyone listening who's curious about what these steps are, we will be going into that, don't worry.
Buy the program. All will be revealed if you buy the program.
We don't have a program, so if it's sign up to the newsletter.
Tell them that.
Sign up to the newsletter, you'll get the steps.
Words with your coach.
Okay. Penultimate question.
Is what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, actually, by the time they'll be listening to this, we will have revealed our mentoring.
Oh, there you go. Buy the program.
/ sign up for mentoring. Anyway, Yanni, how do I know if I really have the skills to do this, or if I'm ready to get started?
I think, to be honest, buying a business is a little bit of like parenting. It's like you never really feel ready to get a child. You just make the decision that you'll have one, and if you have it, then you'll figure out what to do. And it sounds funny, but it's really like that. I mean, of course, if you want to buy manufacturing businesses, it's helpful if you understand manufacturing. I mean, Phil is the proof and the example that you don't have to. So I mean, if you wanna buy a service oriented business, obviously it helps if you like dealing with customers. It's like, I think the question you have to ask yourself is the skill set I'm having relevant to the type of business I'm trying to buy?
Yeah.
And if it is, then it will make things a lot easier, because you don't have to learn manufacturing if you never worked in manufacturing. Or you don't have to understand like bookkeeping if you like, if I would buy an accounting firm, that would like, it's like, it's not that I don't understand accounting, I just don't like it. So I mean, and this is a little bit contrary to the point where it comes to what Phil said. If you like what you're doing right now, or if you love that, then just stay with it. It can be viable that you say, okay, I'm a great engineer, or I'm a great bookkeeper, or whatever, and I really love doing that, and so I'm gonna buy a business in that thing. So that is a viable, that's a viable option. And I think what helps is, I mean, there are a lot of tests and personality tests and skill tests and 360 feedback and whatever out there. Some are better, some are worse. We can argue about how precise they are, but it is definitely, what I would recommend is take inventory of what skills do you actually have. And what helps a lot there is talking to your co-workers, to your friends, for what skills or what type of skills they appreciate on you. And then that makes it easier, because we have this like this mirror reflection is not always the truth. If we think we have that skill but we really don't, or we do have a skill that we don't really see. So I think if you take inventory of your skills, and then you can decide if you want to buy a business that is within that parameters, or if you feel, I think that comes then down to confidence, if you feel confident enough to do something completely different.
One thing I would say is, you need to, if you think you want to buy a business, you need to get help.
Yes.
Professional help.
You need some serious therapeutic input. But what I actually mean by that is, you probably, if you're even thinking about the question, then you probably do have some or all of the skills that you would need. But you need to get a coach of some description. You need someone outside of the situation to talk to, who can advise you, and coach, mentor, call it what you want, but you need someone who has some world experience, some life experience. Whether you pay them or not, it's probably better if you do pay them, actually. But you need someone like that, because they will be the ones who will tell you what you've got, not necessarily what you need, but they'll tell you what you have, and they'll tell you what you don't have, so you can actually understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, and what stage you're actually at.
Yeah.
You may not agree with everything they say, but it will give you an insight which you can't get yourself. And also, you need someone to bounce thoughts and ideas off. Is this a good idea? I'm thinking about that. Is that a good idea? You need that outside influence. And I think actually one of the reasons why a lot of people who are perfectly capable of doing this kind of thing, whether it's businesses or whether it's real estate, one of the reasons why they don't do it is because they don't have that coach or that person, that mentor to talk to. You know, Robert Kiyosaki would probably be a university professor if he didn't have his rich dad who wasn't his dad. It was that relationship which switched him on to the idea of buying real estate in his case. And with us, it's the coach that got us to where we are, or got us to where we are, in the sense that they were the ones that held up the mirror. So, and you know, you look at the world of sport, how many successful sports people don't have a coach? No one else who is great in sport ever got there without coaching and without going through a string of coaches on the way, generally, because whatever level you're at, you need something different. But you're never going to achieve your potential in life without external input. And that's particularly the case here, I think.
That leads us nicely on to the final question, which I'll answer, which is basically how can I learn more? Because there's things we've touched on here today, which if we tried to go into in all detail, would be here all night. Things like raising the money, things like, you know, the acquisition steps and the, you know, the things you need to move through in order to progress a deal. There's loads of detail in and around what we're talking about. So if you want to start learning this detail, if you're intrigued by the journey, then speak to us, contact us, don't be shy. We're always happy to answer questions. We've got, you can either come through our website, which is uk-bcp.com, and it'll all be in the podcast notes, or you can contact us on LinkedIn. We're very happy, like I say, to answer any questions. We've got a free newsletter where you'll get information. We do have our mentoring program, and just excited for anyone who's sat there thinking, oh, this could be my next career step. Anything to add, gentlemen, before we close?
I think you've summarized it beautifully.
Meeting adjourned.
Perfect.
Hopefully we've inspired someone, and maybe in an audience of 1,990 people will think that's very interesting, but not for me. But maybe the other 10 will be thinking like we thought, which is, well, if those bozos can do it. ...
What a perfect way to finish. Right. Thank you for listening to our special 4-part series. And we hope that it helps you make the decision if this is something for you or not. It doesn't have to be a grand life-changing decision at this stage. It's just opening the door to investigate, I guess. That's how we started, just by doing our homework and reaching out to people who could help us answer questions and figure out how we get going, basically. So if you have questions, if you want to chat more about the opportunity for you, feel free to reach out. Yes, we have our free newsletter, and there will be lots of information in there. We also are looking for people to mentor and partner up with on deals. So just want to have that conversation, really. We will be back in October with more free content. We'll be talking more about where we're up to in our own acquisition journey. We'll be sharing kind of more about the onboarding process. So what we do once the deal has gone through. And we'll be sharing how we're kind of adapting to the current times. You know, most would say a pandemic, it wasn't the best time to start this venture, but hey ho, if you are flexible and adaptable, you can make it work, as we have, and it can still be fun. It doesn't have to be mega stressful. And it's thinking long term. It's thinking, what are you building in the long term? You know, what is your legacy? What are you passing down to your children or your loved ones? And how are you making the most of your life? You know, getting the most out of your life, the most out of your potential, on both a kind of wealth building side and a enjoying life side. These are all questions that, yeah, we all reflected on personally, and why we ended up doing this venture. So I invite you to have the same reflections. And yeah, we'll be back in October. Take care. Hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please let us know. That's always nice to hear. And yeah, reach out with any questions. All right, take care, guys.